All right, welcome back, everybody. It is War Room Episode 8. You've made it this far. It's pretty awesome. I am your host, Keith Corbliss, along with my awesome co-host, John Moynihan, aka JMO.
What's up, everybody? We're taking a little bit different route for this episode. Those of you who follow along have known that we've had some key prospects on the podcast. We had our first major leaguer come on last week. We're taking a different approach this week. This week, we have our first coach on. He's a #1 author. His book is Dear Coach, and it's on his personal experience with coaching and dealing with parents, as well as he has his own business and hitting lessons through his website and business, The Hitting Vault. He's been a hitting instructor across many different leagues, whether they be baseball or softball, most recently with the Chicago White Sox and the University of Oregon softball team. He's also known as the internet's most followed baseball and softball coach. Please welcome to the podcast, Coach Matt Lyle. Hi, Coach.
Hey, guys.
Coach.
Hey, Keith, John. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it. What have you been up to during kind of this uncertain time, this quarantine, anything?
Oh, man, it's been crazy. Coaching, some of my pro guys are coming out of the woodworks now, and there's a facility not too far away that we can kind of sneak into in the mornings where nobody's there. I've done a lot of Zoom hitting lessons with some minor league guys over this time, and just living in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, it's just kind of crazy. Everything's still pretty locked down, and kids and stuff. So just trying to enjoy some family time, and that's really the gist of it, and trying to see kind of what's happening with baseball this year. It's been kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's definitely been a pretty crazy year, to say the least. And I kind of want to start off with kind of your journey a little bit to begin, and because you kind of have an interesting one.
To say the least.
One of the things that we saw with you is that you kind of hopped on the social media game really early. I believe it said 2010 you started posting videos and starting to become kind of like an instructor. A little bit about, for the people that don't know his background, he's got about 700,000 total followers, and he started in 2010 when it's kind of its baby stage. Can you kind of explain like your social media aspirations in like 2010, and did you see it growing into what it is today?
Yeah. So on a side note, I'm almost at 1 million. I'm going to hit 1 million. Maybe.
Oh, you're 1 million.
Yeah, maybe by the end of this year. I probably need to update my my website. But I'm teasing you.
Well, congratulations on that.
That's been pretty cool. I've been keeping an eye on it. Only just like, it'd be cool to be able to have that 1 million. So
for sure.
For me, just being social media a little bit here and there. And I watched, I'm the guy who's watching, just like you guys probably, I was watching YouTube videos in 2007 and like, what is this, thing, and social media, playing with it. And then really it was 2012 that I kind of took a look around and said, okay, from a hitting standpoint, what's out there? And there were like a couple of guys doing DVDs. There was Charlie Lau and there was Mike Epstein, and you had these different programs, but there wasn't a lot of people sharing hitting stuff on social media. Mm-hmm. I just said, hey, you know what? I'm just going to go for it 100%. Just share everything I know about hitting. And I went in like 8 hours a day, like no joke, trying to map out like posts and stuff like that. And so for me, I was like, okay, what could I talk about? What could I share that'd be helpful to people? And like, just like that, I got to like 100,000 followers in like the first year. And I was like, oh, this could be something. And I think I tell people, at least back then, when you used to hit like 10,000 followers, things would just roll. And there's so many people on social media now. Like, I would say like I've recycled some posts every once in a while, and like something that I would get like, 1,000 retweets on 2 years ago would get like 75 now. It's just like, that's how crowded this space is in general. How many people are on social media? But back in 2012, like I said, I don't know why. I read a book by Gary Vaynerchuk, and I was like, this guy seems pretty interesting, and he's got some strategy on how to provide value on social media. I'm like, okay. And it was like, just give away everything. Let's just give it all away, and let's try to build a following and see what happens. And next thing you know, it just kept growing and growing and growing. And by 2014, 2015, I started getting calls from Major League Baseball teams saying, hey, I've been following your stuff for a long time. Let's talk about it. And, I got first person I think that reached out to me was Jock Peterson. Okay. And Jock was just, I think he was just getting in AAA. I had never heard of him. I looked him up. I'm like, okay, cool. He said, I've been following me on social. I want to work with you. And so him and I started building a relationship for a couple of years, and I coached him a lot through that rookie year, through the All-Star game. And through that, next thing you know, Daniel Descalso, Mitch Haniger, all these different, like, just minor league guys, some pro guys, started reaching out to me and saying, hey, I've been following you on Twitter for a long time. I really like your stuff. Can we work together? And like I said, and so from that, like it just kind of just skyrocketed from in my career, in the sense of those guys talking to other guys and teams reaching out to me. And so social media was this huge tool for me to reach new people, build new relationships. And so that's kind of how it turned out for me.
It's kind of crazy how, like, in today's world, you can literally, and obviously you did it, even like before, just as it was growing into what it is now, where you kind of just press post, see what happens. And then you wake up the next morning and it's just, your life completely changes just in a blink of an eye.
It's crazy. Like there've been times I posted a video, had been maybe 3 years ago, of the UConn women's basketball coach, Gino. And I didn't think it was that exciting of a post. And it got 84 million views like in a day, and like blew up. And like, it was on the news, it was on ESPN, and it was on like all these news channels, like this social media post. I'm like, it's like you said, it's just like, there's no rhyme or reason half the time to some of the things that happen on social media. But I know I gained 50,000 Facebook followers from that post.
That's crazy. Just seeing the numbers just climb up, you refresh, and it just goes.
And so it was just like this fun game of watching it. And so like social media has been a tool to do that. And I think a lot of other people have too. I mean, I know it's a lot more difficult in 2020 as it was in 2012 and 13. Mm-hmm. But the same principles still apply, I think, in the sense of providing really good value and content to people and saying, hey, I'm going to share with you what I know. And I think this is really helpful. And hopefully it's helpful to you. And I think that if you can enter the conversation with those things, I think people will still gravitate towards, hey, this is a really good tip, or this is a really good advice. And I want to see more of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of that, like sharing your information with the world, I'll never forget. I was a sophomore in high school, and I had just found you on Twitter, and you were doing like an open question and answer. You're like, reply with any hidden questions that you have. And I replied with my question, and it was like within 5 minutes you replied with your answer. It was unbelievable. I was like, wow, he actually
and that's what when people I can't tell you how many people come to me with like, hey, how can I do what you're doing? And like, for me, the biggest advice that I give people is like, engage in those conversations as much as you can. Like, and same on the other end. If you're a young coach, what the beautiful thing about social media, and especially something like Twitter, is that someone that you really respect or follow, like a Gary Vaynerchuk, like for me, it was Gary Vaynerchuk. I think he still follows me. I talked to his team. I talked to his team about interviewing me for a book, and it's like, Twitter gives you access to those people. And, the thing I always tell people, like, think about, I'll give you a great example. Think about Instagram and some of the people that you follow, and maybe not the super big celebrities, but like, let's say it's a college baseball coach and they post something. They might get 5 comments. Maybe they get 10 comments, but like, you have the ability to leave a comment or ask a question, and there's a good chance that you might get a response in that. And same thing with Twitter. Like, you can enter the conversation at a high level and I was a high school baseball coach in 2012 with no following. And so, but it allowed me to go on social media, and a major league player or a coach could say something, and I could say, hey, what about this? Or ask a question, or provide value to the conversation. Next thing you know, now you're in this conversation, and someone else might come along and say, oh, hey, this guy's got some good insight. I might follow that guy. I might, or have this conversation. And so the principles and the access of social media still allow for that to happen. And again, like I follow Twitter stuff. I don't follow as much as I did, but like some of the hitting coaches that I see, and they post stuff and the conversation, and sometimes there's 2 or 3 comments. And like, if you were to ask a good question or enter the conversation, that person's going to respond. And like, for me, I've become really good friends with Sean Casey from MLB Network, and I've helped him with Diamond Demos and a lot of stuff over the years. And like, again, it was follow me on social media, and him and I we're in the same location, and he wanted to get lunch, and we went to lunch, and we've become really good friends since then. And if I didn't have that Twitter following, like, Sean Casey would have no idea who I was, or, like that. And so I still think those things exist out there. And I think, people are trying to do it.
And, when you kind of say that, it's kind of interesting because, like, we're kind of seeing that too with the podcast in general, is that, the way we're getting people is, messaging on Twitter, Instagram, whatever. And, like, people are actually, as long as you just put yourself out there and you just send the message, there's a good chance that they could see it. So it's true.
Yeah,
it really is.
And one thing, Coach, when you were first starting out, obviously, like you said, just like being open and stuff on Twitter. And when Rob was on the show last week, we talked about it a little bit too, and how when he was first starting out his journey in baseball, once he got drafted, he was like, I was open to coaching, but I wasn't very coachable. If that makes sense, because I thought I had it all figured out. And he then, as he's grown, he said, if somebody, even if they don't have the big thing is, oh, he never played in the major leagues, so what does he know? He doesn't know what he's talking about. Did you have that same sort of issue when you were first starting out, and how did you kind of get over that hump?
You're breaking up just a little bit there. I apologize.
Sorry.
I heard most of it. Ask the question just one more time. Sorry.
Yeah. So it was like, did you kind of have that same attitude toward yourself from other people that were already in the industry, and how do you kind of go about breaking out of that segment of, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about, he never played in the major leagues?
So I would say in 2020, my block list is very long. I've had a lot of guys come at me, and even coaching with the White Sox, I had a lot of people come at me from the organization, from outside of it, social media. For me, it's tough. Like, I think if it doesn't affect you to some degree, you're not a human being. Like, I don't think, like, if you say, I don't care what anybody says, to me, actually, there's something wrong with you if that's what you think. Because I think, like, as human beings, we care of what people think about us a little bit. So for me, I just have learned that, like, to listen to the voices of people that I respect. So for me, like, would this be someone I ask advice from in life? If so, then maybe. But there's just, there are people out there who are going to always try to tear you down. And I think for me, along the way, I've tried to have the attitude, like, why is this person attacking me? Like, and a lot of times, like, for a guy like me who was out, never coached, never played pro ball, never coached at those levels, and for this to have success, I think, hey, maybe they feel threatened for their job, or maybe they're worried about this. What like, why are they attacking? Maybe they're just miserable people. I don't know. But so it's like, to me, try to have some empathy for what is it why is it they're doing that? But yeah, I'll tell you, man, it's been the hardest part of my journey in coaching and in social media. There has been days that I've said, I should probably just step away from social media. I don't like, the trolls get to you. They do wear you down in a lot of ways. I've blocked so many people now that I'm in a pretty good pace of when that happens. But it's still, especially from people, I've had major league guys who are very well respected say, you're not a real hitting coach. You're not you're not this. And it's like, wow, this person is a pretty big time person telling me that I'm not good at this. And that's hurtful. But at the same time, I think just as human beings, I think, and I'll give you this advice to you guys too, is I think anytime that you get positive affirmations and things that are truth, they're not lies or fears in your head, that you need to hold on to those things and remember those things. And for me, if you look over my shoulder right here, this is Mitch Haniger's all-star game jersey from the All-Star game that he sent to me. And I know that there are people that I have really helped in their career from a coaching standpoint, and I've had impact on those people. And those people have told me, thank you for, really helping me be the player or the hitter that I am. And so those are truths. Like, those are things that I know that are true. And so when people are saying you're a fraud, you're not a real hitting coach, you're a social media guy, you don't know anything, to me, I go, you know what? I have helped. I have proof that there are players, major league players and high school players and college players and coaches that have said, hey, Matt, you have helped me in my journey, and I'm a better coach or a better hitter, a better player because of you. And to me, I know that those are truths. And so I'm going to hold on to those things, and all the things in our heads of like, hey, and on those self-doubts and the fears and the things that people are saying, those are lies a lot of the time. And I think if you can distinguish the difference between those two things, you can do a lot better. And for me, I've really tried to press into what is the truth, like what is the real thing. And for me, that's helped me a lot.
Absolutely. And we'll go back a little bit too as well. Well, obviously from your coaching experience at high school all the way to professional baseball, is there like a couple of concrete ideals that you would teach anybody about hitting, whether they be in little league, high school, collegiate player, MLB player? Are there some concrete things that are pretty much, no matter at what level of hitting you're at or are at your career, are there a couple of things that just remain true for everybody?
For me, it's one, like being the most athletic you can be, like being the best athlete you can be, like swinging a bat the most. And for me, I think every single hitter has their best, most efficient swing. And I think it's different for every single hitter. And so I think the only absolutes of hitting is what is the best way for John? What is the best way for Keith to swing the bat, to do damage the most consistently? And so for me, I don't think there are really any true absolutes other than like be athletic and the best you can be. And I think for most athletes, they have to find what that is. And if it's uncomfortable and a coach is telling you to do X, Y, Z, and you're like, man, this is really uncomfortable, this doesn't feel right, it's something, you're probably right. Your body's telling you that it's probably right. And so if that's the case, what is the best way for you? And so I think for me as a coach, in my evolution as a coach, most of the conversations I have with hitters are, hey, let's find what works best for you, and let's take out what doesn't. And it's going to be different for every single person. And my goal is to help them find that, and for them to be able to say, oh yeah, I figured out. And for me, like with some of my major league guys that I have right now, they send me videos still throughout the season or not in off season. It's like, I think I'm doing X, Y, and Z, or I did this and now this. I'm like, dude, you did it yourself. You don't even need me. Like, that's the goal. That's the goal. Like I want them to be able to be athletic. So for me, being athletic is number thing. And again, finding what is the most efficient swing for you. And everybody is different. I can tell you right now that a hitter who is big, huge, strong guy that delivers a lot of force without much effort versus a 140-pound, 5'7" second baseman who's a freshman in high school, or even maybe a freshman in college, they have to swing differently. That kid, that skinny, flexible kid has to create force differently than the guy who's 6'5", 240, can just sit there and create force that way. So
Aaron Judge and Jose Altuve.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So they have to create force and swing a bat differently. They can't do it that way. So everybody's different. That to me, the answer is everybody's different, and you got to find what it is. And I think the mistake that a lot of coaches get into, and maybe not so much in 2020, but through my 20 years of coaching, is that cookie cutter, and you got to do this, you got to do that. Anytime I hear absolutes from coaches to players, or you have to do it this way, that's a huge red flag to me on the development of that player. Because if they say that you have to, you can't have a leg kick, or you can't do this, or you know what, you need to really just focus on hitting balls opposite field. That's like, okay, like why? Like what is the reason? Because it matches your philosophy you developed over the years, or is it the best thing for that hitter? And so I think that's been a struggle in baseball for the years. And I also think it's a reason why some hitting coaches out there are having a lot of success right now, is that they're finding out that the guys who are doing cookie cutter are struggling with guys, and the guys who are being able to adapt and learn about body movement and learning what's best for that player are having success, and those guys are thriving right now.
So you kind of touched upon it. So you're kind of talking about like the cookie cutter mold of like the old baseball, and kind of, so do you kind of develop your game around some analytical kind of just baselines?
Yeah, I would say whenever people ask me like, what's your hitting philosophy? My philosophy is do damage and get on base. and it's kind of revolves. If we're talking about stats, it's really revolved around OPS, like on base percentage plus slugging percentage, and there's way more involved in that, like in different stats and WOBA and expected WOBA. Like as a hitting coach, expected WOBA kind of weighted on base average. So for me, it all boils down, like when I talk to kids or talk to parents, like, what's your philosophy? Do damage a lot and get on base. And so what that involves is I've got to create force barrel on that ball as much as possible. Create force barrels is what I want to have. But the other side of that coin is I have to have really good plate discipline and make good decisions from the plate, because if I only get the opportunity to swing a bat 3 to 6 times in a game, I need those 3 to 6 times to be decisions that cause damage, and the times that I decide not to. So for me, I know, and from a money ball standpoint, like, get on base. Totally true. You have to make good decisions to get on base. But you have to couple that with like, hey, I want to do damage a lot. So I need to make decisions that are best for doing damage. And so if I swing at pitches low and away only, and I take pitches right down the middle, it doesn't matter how much damage you could do damage in practice all day long, but if that's what you do, your on base percentage and slugging percentage is going to be terrible.
Yeah.
So, how do we cause damage, and how do we do it as much as possible? And what are the pitches and stuff that you do that on? And 2, hey, we got to get on base. Like you have to get on base. So how do you get on base? And like, is it by not swinging at these pitches? It is swinging at these pitches, and et cetera. So to me, from an analytical standpoint, if we're just talking about hitting, like expected WOBA, barrels, those things are really important. But at the end of the day, it boils down to do damage and get on base.
That's a good. That's definitely a good way to live by in the MLB at this point. One of the questions I also have is, because obviously you have a huge list of major leaguers that you've helped develop and things like that. And you talked about swinging at certain pitches and others not. In a sense of, when you get to the bigs, obviously you have to be a pretty well-rounded hitter in the first place, and an elite hitter at that. Can you kind of go into like what you tweak on? And I don't know if because like from a perspective of someone that doesn't know, what it takes to get to the bigs, kind of I'm trying to word this correctly. And like, what is like how do you tweak like Jock Peterson and Mitch Haniger, even though they're both elite hitters, because they've obviously made it to the bigs? How do you change their approach on some things and get them to even increase when they're already that good?
Yeah. So it really depends on the hitter. Like, for example, people sometimes ask me like, what would you do if Mike Trout came to the cage? What would you tell him? I tell him, bro, you're the best hitter of all time. Give me a high five. And so I think that you just at every level in life, where you guys are at right now, where I'm at right now, athletes especially, they want to be the best version of themselves. They want to be the best. So if I have a hitter come to me and maybe they're skeptical, they're not sure, I always ask the question. I ask them a lot of times: do you think you could be better than you are right now? I haven't had any hitter ever say, I'm at the peak, I'm where I need to be. You know what I mean? So the question is like, what is their approach to getting better? What is the thing? And so I think that for a lot of hitters that have come to me, it's like, hey, I think there's something in my swing that's not great. I want to improve my swing. And so maybe that's something with at the college level and sometimes the pro level, it could be around conversation. Now with StatCast and all this data, we can say, hey, you know what, man, this pitch right here and this location, this speeds, like this is not your cup of tea. So we got to lay off these pitches, and we got to train. We need to train to do that, but we also need to train to improve that area. So, but at the same time, we want to be really good at what you do. You know what? Up and in, you hit a lot of home runs there. So let's be really good at that and know that when you recognize that, like we're going Yahtzee, we're swinging at that. So it just really depends on each player's approach and what they want to improve on. And for me, at the end of the day, I think all hitters and coaches, people, if they self-evaluate, they say, am I the best version of myself? Do I want to get better? So, some people may not. I'll tell you, I won't give you names, but I've had major league players that I've sat on a FaceTime call and told them, hey, I think you need to do X, Y, and Z. They go, nope, I'm not doing that. And like, I'm perfectly fine with where I'm at. I'm like, okay, cool. Good luck to you. And I've had players do that and come back and say, hey, I was wrong. I've also had players say, nope, I disagree, and not come back. And so for me, I try to meet them where their need is. And I think at the major league level, hitting coaches, I would tell you guys that I have a lot of friends who are Major League Baseball hitting coaches, and their job is more of a psychologist than a hitting coach. And I think that at the minor league levels, it's much different from a player development standpoint. You spend a lot more time in the cage working stuff. But at the major league level, most of those guys have a great feel for their swing, and they don't really want to change a lot of things there. But from a mental standpoint, they might want to do X, Y, and Z. And I tell you, I've come across players across the gamut. I've had players, as soon as the game is over, in the last 4 years, several players who send me video of their swings from 10 minutes before that, half hour before that, the game was over. And they want to talk from 11 p.m. till 2 a.m. on their swings from that game. And other guys who I've talked to are just like, I go in the cage, I take my hacks, go to the game, see the ball, hit the ball, and they never think about their swing, breaking it down, ever. And hey, it's great. So I just think you have such a wide gamut that I think at the major league level, hitting coaches are trying to figure out, what is the best for this player? What does he need to be his best version of himself? And for some of those guys, especially at the major league level, it's attaboys and a lot of, mental coaching and psychology. And you never talk about those swings. And it's really about, hey, man, you went 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts yesterday. How do I get this player to perform tonight and not be in their heads? And it has nothing to do with hitting. Whereas at the high school, college, minor league level, hey, maybe you're doing a lot more video breakdown. You're doing a lot of swing. But every hitter is different at every level. And you're going to have major league players that get into the video room after the game and they want to break down their swing and they want to break it down. Other guys who walk away from the field, go to dinner and in the hotel, and they never think about their swing.
Yeah. And speaking on, obviously, like kind of looking into the swings and everything, and you talked about when you're working with, whether it be parents or even youth players, it's, make hard contact and get on base. And I'm sure that you touch upon this in your book. What are kind of your thoughts of parents right now in youth sports? I did a project on parental influence in youth sports and dropout rate for those players. Do you think that there's like a real issue right now with sports specialization from like a 10-year-old saying, I want to play professional baseball and this is all I'm going to focus on?
Yes and no. I think the problem really is on the parent side. I don't think it's on the kid side at all. I can tell you guys right now, when I was 4 years old, my dream was to be a Major League Baseball player. And that was my singular goal. And I played 4 sports in high school. I lettered in 4 sports, and I loved all my sports, and I loved all the things that I did. And I played all the sports growing up. But my goals were Major League Baseball player, BMX rider, or astronaut, and the other 2 were never going to happen. So my only shot was, and that didn't happen as well. But I think if it's athlete driven, if it really is like, hey, you know what, my kid, like my 3-year-old, man, he loves baseball. He's in the backyard every day playing for really long times. I think if it's kid driven and they really love the game, I think they need to be introduced to other sports and try to be encouraged to do other sports. And I'm not a fan of specialization, but I do think there are kids who just love the game of baseball and they want to play it every day. And that's great. I don't think it needs to be organized sports, 150 travel ball games a year, but like playing a lot of wiffle ball in the backyard and playing with friends down at the end of the court. That's different to me. I think the problem that we have in America is that parents, from a specialization standpoint, they look around and they see other kids who are really good or specializing in this sport, and they're like, hey, you know what? I'm going to invest money and time into this. I think my kid can get a scholarship. I think my kid can be a pro, and so I'm going to help them do that. And they make it about their journey, and they make it about their goals. And along the way, they don't realize that they never sat down with their kid and talked about what the kid's goals are. And guess what? You usually around 10 to 13 years old, 14 years old, goals can change to video games, girls, other sports, computers, music. It could be anything. And I think parents nowadays, they somehow forget that their kid has goals and things that they are about. And if they're the driver of the entire journey, you're going to have this big crash, usually between 12 and 15 years old. But if they come alongside their kid and they say, hey, do you like playing this? Is this fun? And they make it about them and their journey and what they love. Those athletes, to me, have a better chance of making it. And I think if you polled all the Major League Baseball players out there, very, very few are going to say, man, my parents just drove me all the way to being here. It was all their overbearingness that got me here. A lot of them say, you know what? I loved playing. I loved going into the backyard and hitting off the tee. And I just loved the game. And nobody was going to tell me that I wasn't going to make it, or, my parents weren't going to have, and they might have support of that. Like, I think a lot of athletes will recognize that their parents gave them tools, resources to get to where they wanted to be. But they're also going to tell you that the ones that had the most success were usually the kids were driving that, and not the parents. And to me, the biggest problem in youth sports in America is the parents are the ones who are driving the journey. It's about them, about their dreams, expectations, and goals, and not about their kids.
Yeah, and that's for sure. That was part of like what I came across in a couple of studies where it's like the kids really love it, and at the same time, parents are just very much about them, and it's going to be my kid that kind of makes it, and everything else. Well, Coach Lisel, we appreciate you taking time out of your day to come sit down and talk to us here at the War Room. Guys, go buy his book. It's titled Dear Coach. It's on Amazon. Go check that out. Give him a follow on Twitter, Instagram. Let's have Coach Lisel hit 1 million. It'll be awesome.
Yeah, we got to get him to 1 million.
Yeah, there you go.
We will see you guys in the next episode. If you guys are watching on YouTube, give the video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're listening on Spotify, give the Spotify channel a follow, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thanks,
Peace.
Coach.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Keith. Thanks for having me on, buddy.
Thank you.